I can't recall a single moment as a young girl where I actually liked what I saw in the mirror. From the time I was young, I was made fun of for the shape of my body, how small and short I was, but how wide I was. And I was never complimented for anything, looks-wise. And I don't know why I internalized it so much, but I felt so incredibly out of control because of it. And it manifested as eating disorders, and later it turned into addiction. It led me down a sordid path, and I ended up at 270 pounds. Eventually, I got tired of having poor health at 29 years old, and I made a shift. But this shift, after being every single size you can imagine throughout my whole life, up and down forever, this shift finally stuck. This is the story of my 120-pound weight loss from the very beginning. Hello again, and welcome back, or welcome for the first time to the Brie Bear Show. Today, I don't have to glance away at notes. I'm going to hold my little snowball today, and I'm going to tell you about my 120-pound weight loss story. I have been on a health journey for 5 years, almost 5 years now. Oh my goodness. I am uninhibited in my storytelling. When it comes to my weight loss story, there's a lot of ugly things. I will say things that may cause you to be triggered. That includes eating disordered eating. It includes a lot of messy, dirty, triggering, traumatic, traumatizing words, language, stories, etc. So the past 5 years have been interesting, I must say. I was in multiple MLMs from 2018 until 2022. But my journey did not start in 2018. My journey with weight loss started when I was in the 7th grade. That would have been around 2000. The turn of the millennia is when turn of the century, millennia. That's when my journey truly began. I was in I was probably the size I am now. Okay, we'll just put it that way. So I'm in a size 10, 8, 10, maybe a 12. It depends on what brand. If we're talking Express, we're talking a 10. Old Navy might be an 8. So, I was offended that I was in double digits. I offended myself with my size. I decide I need to take control. I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s when diet culture was the most harmful it probably had ever been. It was the heroin chic era. It was Pamela Anderson in the bathing suits on Baywatch. It was you had to be skinny, blonde, with tiggle bitties in order to be considered beautiful, acceptable, magazine-worthy, picture-worthy, MySpace-worthy. That was a little later down the road, but you know what I mean. You weren't getting in anybody's top 8 if you were ugly, okay? So I was all right, I want to be smaller. I'm just going to stop eating. And so it started in the 7th grade. Slowly, progressively, over time, I am limiting the amount of food I take in, and I'm almost it was weird, y'all, but it was kind of like a weaning process. I was slowly titrating the amount of food that I was allowing myself. I am literally hungry just talking about this. When you're older and you think about all the naps you missed, I'm just thinking about all the meals that I missed. Hot dogs, pizza, mac and cheese. It's disappointing. So it took a whole year, all through 7th grade. I decide this big body is not for me. And I wasn't big. That's the problem. That's where I got real screwed up. I wasn't big. I was shaped like a woman already. And by the time I reached the 8th grade, I was 130-ish pounds. So it starts early in the 7th grade. My cat is meowing. Archie, no. So I slowly stopped eating. I was eating one Nutri-Grain bar a day, the apple ones. Those were my favorite, the green ones. They were green at the time. I don't know what the heck they look like now. They're all blue and stuff, but it was just a solid green package. I would eat one of those a day. That was my ration. 120 calories is what I lived off from. So you can imagine I lost weight incredibly quickly. I was in sports. I was doing soccer in the 8th grade. I even did track only because I wanted to lose more weight. That was the only interest I had vested in track. My complete and utter appreciation for people noticing that I was thin drove me to eat less and less and less. And if I did eat, it got to a point where when I ate, I binged. And again, I'm telling you, trigger warning all throughout this, I binged and I would purge. All right. So I did not just stop at full-blown anorexia, but it developed into full-blown binge and purge type. You go so long without eating, all you think about is food. And so I would just binge and then take it out on the toilet. Sorry about my cat meowing. He is totally fine. He has a litter box. If he needs to go to the bathroom, I have always had really thick legs and a big butt. I didn't know it back then, but I do have lipedema. And that is a disorder in which the fat on certain parts of your body is diseased. You can look it up. Lipedema. I'm not going to get into it, but maybe I will. I will actually later do a video on lipedema. It's so interesting. It sucks. It's terrible. It hurts. It's actually very painful. And it is visually not your acceptable shape. So we have what they call like tree trunk legs. We have very thick legs from thigh to toes, essentially. And they're not shaped like normal people because we have this collection of diseased fat. And I had it since I was young. So I used to get made fun of a lot for my legs. No, don't just come over here and start meowing, sir. I already felt so different and I just wanted to be normal. So from the time I was 13 until I was 18 is really when my eating disorder was the worst. I struggled with it on and off periodically up until I became pregnant with my son, who was born when I was 18. I don't want to cry. I'm not going to cry. I always say my kids each saved me in their own way through different periods of my life. My Landon saved me from my eating disorders. I was 196 when I delivered him. Biggest I'd ever been. Was so ashamed of it. So I did put on some weight through high school, early college, and I was pregnant as well. After I had him, the weight naturally just came off with breastfeeding, moving my body. So I still struggled with the eating disorder, but it was so spread out. It wasn't daily. It wasn't even monthly at that point. And it just slowly phased itself out and kind of developed into a pill addiction. I gained a lot of weight when I became dependent on pills because at first I lost a bunch of weight. I got down to like 120, y'all. I got really, really small. Like around the time I had started nursing, I was doing a lot of Adderall because I worked nights and it made me really thin because I just didn't eat. So of course, anytime you just stop eating, metabolic adaptation happens. Working nights, my system was all thrown off. So when I stopped using the Adderall and switched to downers, opiates, I gained weight a lot. And then I became pregnant after I had gone into recovery some years later. In 2015, I got pregnant with my daughter. I remember the very first appointment I went to, that very long prenatal appointment, like the first one. And oh my gosh, I remember looking at the paper and it said I was 240 pounds. Being like, oh my gosh, you're pregnant and you're 240 pounds. You're a disgusting human. Like I just beat myself up all the time. I only gained 20 pounds with my daughter. And 7 of that was her. So, 10, 13 pounds with her because I had hyperemesis gravidum. So I come out of that pregnancy, I'm 250. I lost a bunch of weight, just again, breastfeeding, natural movement. I'm eating, I'm recovered. I'm not having eating disorder behaviors. I'm not having disordered eating, and I'm not addicted to drugs anymore. So I'm getting healthy. March of 2017, I was pregnant again. So third baby, when I was pregnant with him, I think I was like 290, right around 300 pounds at 5'2". And I was 270 after like getting out of the hospital and all of that. So I carried myself right around 270 for a while. I ended up having to do some time in county jail for a driving charge. So I had to do like 54, close to 2 months in jail. And I lost weight in jail. Isn't that so funny? So I got down to about 225 in jail, came out, gained it back, started drinking very heavily. I struggled with a lot of trauma from being in jail. And I self-medicated every single night. And then we moved into this house that we have now, and I started to settle down. We had been unhoused. Oftentimes, you have nothing when you start your recovery. You have nothing, and for years, you are picking up the pieces of your addiction. The reason I went to jail is because I was picking up pieces I was no longer using at that point. So I did struggle with a lot of stuff when I got out. I didn't struggle with it for long, and I didn't go back to my drug of choice. I didn't go back to addiction and dependence. I went to therapy. I started researching ways to heal. I started digging into books. I had dabbled a little bit in network marketing with some products prior to that. I went back to it in November of 2018. So we move into this home. I decide I need to do something because I can't stand how I feel. I was big. So I start looking at different diets to do and different companies that have products. And I stumbled upon a company because I had already been in a different company with a team. So I knew these people. I knew my upline well. I'd already worked with her. I loved her. We talked for a while about it. I decided to join her. I'd already tried keto 4 or 5 times, failed miserably every time. And she's like, no, you'll have the resources. You'll have the support. You'll have the accountability. It'll work for you. You'll be good. I had made up my mind. This is working. I am absolutely going to lose weight. So I get into the company, I start drinking ketones once or twice a day, and I start doing keto. I lose 70 pounds doing keto. About a year and a half in, I switched companies. I was tired of Prove It. I was tired of fasting. I actually started reverting back to my binging behaviors, and that scared the crap out of me. I had to have a serious talk with myself. I was like, you are never going back. You are never running back into the arms of your eating or your drug addiction. Get your together. What I should have done is left the industry altogether and just done it on my own. I wasn't losing weight because of Prove It and the products, y'all. I was losing weight because I was on a keto lifestyle, but I was in a calorie deficit. I was moving my body. I was just doing what you're supposed to do to lose weight. So I switch. I go to a company called Be Epic. They had a 3-capsule system. I am still keto. I did keto and then I quit keto a couple months in that company. And wouldn't you know it, they decide to come out with a freaking ketone product. I was so done with keto. I was so sick of it. I was sick of fasting. I was sick of ketone talk and ketosis and all these freaking buzz phrases. I was tired of it. And as soon as I got rid of it, really let it go, it resurfaces. Through that second company that I was in. I did like the product at first, used it for a couple months, did well with it because I went back to doing more of a low carb based lifestyle after I had kind of just started eating what I wanted. Then I go back to keto because they're coming out with a ketone product. And what you do when you're in multi-level marketing is you try to align with the product. It's marketing. I just did a video about a girl in Prove It doing this. I did it too. I was a shady just like the rest of them. I know this. Switch companies again. This was the last company I was in. This company, I'm actually not even going to name this company. I between Be Epic and that last company lost another, and I'm not saying these products helped me lose the weight, because again, they didn't. I lost the weight because of myself, my movement, my energy levels. Yeah, that probably helped, having energy from the products. But y'all, when I quit the products, I just drink a Celsius and I have the same amount of energy. It's $2.50 per serving, not freaking $4, $5, $6. Ketone's $10 a serving. Like, no. Ugh. Anyway, between the time that I'm in Be Epic and the last company, I lost another 60 pounds. So 120 overall. My weight has always gone up and down until August of 2021. Until now, I have maintained 115 to 120-ish pounds of weight loss for almost 2 years now. So if the products didn't lose the weight for me, how did I actually lose the weight? Well, I kind of already went over that. When I started with Prove It, I was doing keto kitchens, they call it, and I was cooking every single night on live video. So I would eat keto food every night, and I was in a calorie deficit. It was strict keto for the first 6 months. The first 6 months, didn't walk, didn't work out, nothing. Strict keto, tracking macros, cooking on keto kitchens. I was into it. It consumed my life. About 6 months in, I start walking. So I'm already, eating like 1,800 calories. I'm in a calorie deficit. I was 270, and I was used to probably eating 2,500 to 3,000 calories because I was a binge eater and a binge drinker. I go on and start walking, and I just didn't stop. I just started walking one day, y'all. I was like, it feels like a good idea to go get a walk in. And I don't have a license, like still to this day, I don't drive. And when I was in MLMs, y'all, I had stuff to send out all the time. I was sending out samples, products, trials, whatever you want to call it, all the time. I remember this girl, Naya, either gave me or sold to me a double stroller. So I'm like walking around with them every day. Or I had one of those plastic Fisher Price wagons that you can pull them in. I walked my arse off, and I didn't just walk. I was pushing babies. I was carrying products. I had a backpack that I would put sometimes up to 30, 40 pounds of products in. I would walk my ass to the post office, which is 2.2-ish miles, I think. I've clocked all these, obviously. So, up to 5-6 miles some days, not just walking, but pushing things, carrying things, so burning a lot of calories. And I'm the type of person that just because I went for a long walk, I don't come home and sit down. No. I'm a moving person. I am always in movement. I have ADHD, and up until a few months ago, it was untreated. So my NEAT, super high. My exercise activity, burning calorie amount, whatever, the TDEE is what I'm talking about. Total daily energy expenditure was very high. And I'm putting in 1,800 calories max. So I lose weight sustainably. Mid-2020, completely stopped doing keto. Started eating bread again. Started eating carbs again. I did it slowly over time, so I didn't binge eat. I didn't develop disordered eating behaviors. I just was very cognizant of what I was putting in my body and not overly aware at the same time, if that makes sense. So I was starting to dip my toe into food freedom without even knowing what the heck it was. I had never heard diet and culture put together. I did not know what that was until I started looking at exiting MLM for good. And then I started putting two and two together. So anyway, all this time, I am deep in diet culture with the keto and the fasting and all the trending things, the products, So I lose half of my weight completely surrounded by and controlled by diet culture. And then I quit without even knowing that I'm dipping my toe into food freedom. And I start doing this mindful kind of intuitive, not intuitive eating, but I'm talking intuitive in nature way of eating when I'm hungry. Imagine that. If I'm hungry at 9 a.m., I would eat. And I don't worry about, okay, it's 9 a.m., I need breakfast food. If I have leftover tacos, baby, I'm eating that. Okay, it's whatever I want to eat, what sounds good, what's in the fridge, what is calling me, really having an actual relationship with my food. We all have a relationship with food, but I didn't have a relationship with food, if that makes sense, before I started figuring out, no, you need to cultivate a healthy relationship with food. You don't need to just have a relationship standing that is kind of like, I need food to live. And that's the relationship most people have with food. Again, no one was teaching me this stuff. No one was telling me, hey, there's this thing called intuitive eating. And I don't follow that, but like a lot of the principles that I was kind of creating myself do align with it. The hunger cue thing, the what sounds good right now, the I want to move my body because it makes me feel good. Those principles truly are helpful. And so I was doing that kind of stuff without knowing it and still remaining in a calorie deficit. I just wasn't overeating. I would eat, and I still to this day, this is how I eat. I eat when I'm hungry. If I'm not hungry in the morning, I don't eat until I feel it. When I feel satisfied, not full, there's a difference. When I feel satisfied, I stop eating. I don't eat when I'm emotional. I don't eat because of emotion, I should say. I intuitively think about, what am I going to eat? What do I have in the house? Do I need to order some food? Do I need to send hubby to the store? Like the other night, for example, we had leftover taco meat, or we had leftover burger I had to cook up. So I make some taco meat. That's my go-to. I eat a lot of tacos, taco meat. I said, okay, I want something else with this. I have shells, but I'm not feeling like that's going to actually fully satisfy me. I'm quite hungry right now. So I look around and I say, I have rice. I really think Spanish rice would be good, or Mexican rice. I get online, I look it up. We have everything we need. I was like, darn, I'm going to make the rice with it. I did, came out really, really good. And I felt so satisfied after I had that taco dinner. I had tacos with a shell, but I mixed it in with rice, like almost as if I just added added rice to taco salad. It was very filling, very heavy, like in a good way. I was satisfied. If I were to eat just 2 tacos without the rice, I would have been left still hungry. And we didn't really have anything else in the house that would have been well suited with tacos. What I'm saying is I put a lot of thought into my food, and this started with keto. Because I had to work around so many foods, because you don't eat carbs on keto for the most part, I would have to get very creative with food. For a while, I resented food. I resented cooking. I wouldn't cook for my kids. I wouldn't cook for my husband. Like they would get, the very bare minimum. Over like the last year or so, I really started falling in love with cooking again because I got out of that MLM mindset too of always having to be busy. Someone else can cook. It's not my job. I don't need to do it. Food doesn't matter. When I left MLM, it gave me the opportunity to cultivate a much healthier relationship with food. And I think that's played the biggest part in maintaining my weight loss. The relationship that I share with food, with walking, with my self-concept, how I view myself, my concept of myself, how I treat myself, what I allow, what I'm willing to eat or not eat, my vessel, how I treat that, what I allow in, what I allow out, what I allow around. I did learn a lot in MLMs. And I think the biggest thing I took away, they don't live by this principle, but they teach it. They teach you not to accept less from people than what you deserve. Now, this was usually used kind of sort of in a way as an abuse tactic to get people out of your life that weren't supportive. Well, I took it very literally. And I started to say, yeah, you're right. I'm not going to let people treat me any type of way. And that includes you. They didn't realize they taught me all the right things, but I was smart enough to figure out that I was indoctrinated, and I used the bullshit that they taught me to get the out. And I really just started like studying. How did you lose this weight? How did you do this? And I put it in a framework, and I called it the Girl Stop Dieting framework. Because what I did to lose the weight, y'all, is I stopped dieting. I got in trouble with keto because of fasting and binging, and I stopped dieting. And I lost the same exact amount of weight over the same exact pretty much period of time, and I've maintained it without issue. I consider what I eat. I have an attachment to every piece of food that I do eat. I eat fast food sometimes. I don't turn my nose up to certain foods. I have a all food fits kind of principle. It's food freedom. There are better foods for me, yes, and that's what I eat a majority of the time. But if I want trash food or junk food, because that's the mood that I'm in, I have good enough connection to self to understand that if I go and eat a salad when all I really want is a Big Mac, I'm still going to want the Big Mac tomorrow. So if I just eat the Big Mac now, I'm going to feel better. I'm not going to think about the Big Mac anymore. And I'm not going to want 2 or 3 of them by the time I get one. So I give in to cravings. I don't have them often. It's crazy. Like when you change your mind around food, things like cravings subside. Constantly thinking about food, I don't do that anymore. Because I can order McDonald's right now, eat it, and not have a weird attachment to what I just did. I'm not going to feel guilt or think about it for a long period of time. It's intuitive, not intuitive eating, again, because that's like a trademarked thing. It's intuitive in nature, like the way that I choose food. I'm intuitively doing it. I'm thinking what sounds good, what feels good, what's supportive of my body right now. If I'm on my period, for example, I stopped drinking. I stopped doing self-deprecating things. I stopped sabotaging myself. I said no, and I put boundaries in place for people that couldn't understand at the time what I was doing. If people would, for example, try and like say, you don't need to go for your walk today, or no, I want to eat Chinese food today, I don't want to eat XYZ, I would just tell them, no, I'm going for my walk right now. I'm sorry, but this is an important thing for me, and I do it every day. I don't skip walks. Because what happens, right, is you go into a weight loss journey, and oftentimes you don't consider yourself. Your husband says, hey, babe, we're going to eat at, Oriental Jade tonight. And you're over here like, God, that doesn't feel good. I don't feel like eating that. I feel like I'm going to overeat because I'm so hungry right now. What can I do? Either say no would be an option. Eat something now so that you're not overly hungry when you get there, right? Like moving through what is going to support my vessel and my brain right now, because I'm going to spiral if I don't do something. Like I really just got in touch with that part of me. And if I didn't want Oriental Jade, I would look at hubby and be like, bro, I don't want OJ. Y'all can eat that, but can you stop and get me Subway? Can you stop and get me da-da-da? Can you stop at the grocery and get me this? I put my body first. Finally, after abusing it for decades. Huge in a weight loss journey. And that goes back to number 1, where all of this starts. And that is with something called self-concept. How you view yourself. We self-sabotage because oftentimes we don't consider ourselves at a level where we deserve to say yes or no to certain things. We don't deserve to stand up for ourselves. See, I could sabotage every time my husband used to say, we're going to go eat here, when he knew darn well I couldn't eat there at the time because of a diet I was on. And I don't do that anymore. But again, there are some places I just won't eat. I could sabotage and just be like, well, that's what hubby wants. So yeah, I'll just do that. I'll feel sick later, but it's totally fine. No, I don't grovel with people over food. I don't negotiate. I think that a lot of people don't have connection to what they eat. A lot of people don't realize it's more than for taste. It is keeping you alive. The reason I lost 120 pounds is because I promised myself in 2018 that I would. Because all I'd ever done is lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, gain weight. I said I'm losing the weight. I don't care how long it takes. I don't have a deadline. Y'all, I didn't even have a scale. I only weighed in every couple of months at my doctor's. I didn't even know what I weighed half the time. Isn't that amazing? It's incredible. It's proof you don't need to step on the scale every day for accountability. It's hard to explain. That is my journey, though. I think, my journey was based in mindset. The changes I made here led to the habits. It led to, you deserve to move your body. You deserve to feel good. And before that, I just didn't think I did. And I decided that my health was more important than my emotional baggage. And I didn't want to carry it around anymore. So I got help. And that slowly but surely led to the healing journey that I went on. I wouldn't have gone on this weight loss journey or this healing / weight loss journey had I not gotten into recovery for my addictions. I absolutely do recommend therapy. That is my story. That is how I lost 120 pounds. I hope that this inspired someone. I hope this helped someone to understand it's never too late, no matter how old you are, no matter when you start. Weight loss isn't everything, just so you know. Yes, I am much healthier now than I was before, but that hasn't always been the case. I'm really happy that you stayed through this whole thing. So thank you so much for coming to the Brie Bear Show, and goodbye. In conclusion, I just want to mention that health is incredibly nuanced. I didn't tell you my weight loss story to encourage you to believe that when I was big, I was severely unhealthy, and now that I'm smaller, I'm so much healthier. I still have similar pain in my legs from the lipedema that I used to have when I was 120 pounds heavier. It's not as severe, no, but I still feel it every single day. There are other health issues that I have struggled with for many years that I still have, like anemia, for example. So you can't look at me and judge this book by its cover. Being fat didn't inherently make me unhealthy. Being thin doesn't inherently make me healthy. Please never judge a book by its cover. Health comes in all different shapes and sizes.